Hello, I'm Cher, the Shadow Walker, and I'm looking at ghosts, demons, spirits, entities, apparitions, and poltergeist activity in residential homes across Canada and the United States. And I'm starting with Newfoundland, and then this is all in the last 48 hours. On Sunday, April 5th at around 11:45 p.m., a private older residence in the Bonavista area, a mother and her teenage daughter, they reported hearing the voice of the father who was at work calling them from the kitchen. When they investigated, the kitchen was empty, but all the cabinet doors were standing open, wide open. And they then witnessed a shadowy, elongated figure move across the hallway into the bedroom that was found to be significantly colder than the rest of the house. Initially, they called the father later that night and they contacted the local paranormal investigators via the private Atlantic Face group. This is an ongoing situation, and the family reported similar voice mimicries 3 times in late March. And if those people want to contact me, and anybody down there is listening and they hear it, just email me and I will help you for free. That's my specialty. In St. John, there was a poltergeist at the East End, and it was at 2:15 in the morning on April 6th. It was in the East End of St. John's, and it's a young couple. They were awoken by the sound of heavy furniture dragging in the living room. Upon checking, their heavy oak dining table had been rotated 90 degrees. While standing in the room, a glass vase was reportedly shoved off a shelf and shattered near them. They described a feeling of intense static in the air, and they contacted their landlord, suspected an intruder, then reported the incident to the St. John's Haunted Hike research affiliates for advice on cleansing space. If they want advice for free, please contact me. So that's an ongoing thing. The dog also has been barking. Okay, near Cabonaire, an apparition at 10:30 p.m. on April 4th. This is historical residence district. An elderly residence, a hazy blue tinted man standing at the foot of the bed. The entity did not speak but appeared to be weeping. It vanished when the resident turned on the bedside lamp. Reported to a family member and subsequently noted in the Heritage Ghost Log. This specific figure has been seen in this home intermittently over the last 30 years around the spring thaw. That's very common. Energies change, and also the gases that come out of the ground. There's many different things that occur to help this. I'm looking at Prince Edward Island next, and in the Morale area. And this has happened in the people's kitchen, and it was April 5th at 3:15 a.m. in the morning. A rural residential property near Morale, that's east of Charlottetown. I know exactly where it is in my head. Um, a homeowner living alone. The witness was awoken by what sounded like every plate in the house shattering. Upon entering the kitchen, no glass was broken, but the metal utensils had been removed from the drawers and laid out in a perfect circle on the floor. A low frequency hum was vibrating the windows. The homeowner initially called the neighbor, and it was later reported to a private investigator specializing in Atlantic abnormalities. And this property is in the Goose River area. It's also known where there's been a lot of mutilations in that area. One has nothing to do with the other. I'm just going to say that. And the homeowner reports missing time for approximately 20 minutes. Okay. And they can contact me if they need help. And in Shadow, in Threshold, in Stratford, it was at 1:40 a.m. in the morning on April 6th. A modern residential subdivision in the Stratford area, a young professional, and their smart home security system. The residents' monitor sensor lights triggered in the hallway. They saw a solid black, featureless figure standing roughly about 7 feet tall, blocking the bedroom door. The figure vanished and did when the lights were turned on, and it appeared like it shrunk right into the floor. And they reported it to the security monitoring company to check the camera malfunctions, and they shared it with a private regional paranormal. And this is the first sighting, so this isn't ongoing in this home. And this one's called Crying Walls, and it's in West Point. On April 4th at 11 p.m., it's an older farmhouse. The family, there was three of them that saw this. They heard distressed sobbing coming from inside the walls of the living room. When they placed their hands on the drywall, they described it as feeling unusually warm, as if a heat source was directly behind the plaster. They saw no apparition, but their electronic devices, phones and tablets, and all drained to zero. Yep. Initially reported to electricians suspecting fire hazards or short circuits, then to the ghost hunters of Prince Edward Island. And the family mentions hearing the sound of this every spring, but the batteries drain in the home is new aggressive element. So next in Nova Scotia, on April 5th at 11:15 p.m., this is a private residential farmhouse just outside of Middleton in the Annapolis Valley. That's heading down towards Annapolis Royal. A homeowner and their adult son. They were alerted by rhythmic pounding coming from the kitchen. Upon entering, they witnessed every cabinet door opening and slamming, shut in unison. And when their son attempted to hold one door shut, he reported a vibrant electric shock that numbed his arm. The activity stopped instantly, followed by foul sulfur smell. Initially reported to a local electrician. They thought there was something wrong with the power. And then to a third eye, it's called Third Eye Paranormal, for a follow up. And yes, the homeowner mentioned that cold spots and sounds of heavy boots walking in the attic have been occurring since March. Well, I'm here. If they care to email me, I will help them. In Dartmouth, on the north end, April 6th at 2:40 in the morning. So this is in the north end. This is an apartment building. A resident woke up to the sound of whispering in their ear. When they looked into the hallway mirror, they saw a tall, spindly figure with no facial features standing directly behind their reflection. The resident turned around, but the hallway was empty. However, the reflection of the figure remained in the mirror for several seconds before melting away. And it was reported to the Atlantic Base Digital Scanners Group. And this is the first visual sighting that this resident has had. But they did notice that their cat refusing to enter the hallway for the last 3 days. Well, that's a pretty good indication. And on Highway 8, that's near Kejimkujik, the corridor, goes all the way from Annapolis Royal right out to Caledonia. A private property on Highway 8, approximately 20 minutes from Kejimkujik, so that would be the area that I lived in. And this was a couple, two people. While sitting in their sunroom, they saw a solid black mass move across their backyard towards the house. It did not walk, but seemed to glide. It stopped at the glass doors, and the witness described mind-speak sensation of a sudden intrusion, thought of heavy iron gate locking. The entity then vanished into the woodline, and they reported it to the Nova Scotia Paranormal Research Society. When I lived out that way, being a psychic, nothing surprises me, but I would hear voices outside, and I would go out and look on the deck, and there was nobody there, but it was from an era of long ago. You could tell by the way the people spoke. And so I know that it was just a shifting in the planes, energy planes that one lives on to the other. And in that area, it seems like there's a lot of activity where things can just clash or overlap. And apparently, and they say it's ongoing. It absolutely is ongoing in that area. In New Brunswick, in the past 48 hours, in St. John, Saturday, April 4th at 11:30 p.m., a 19th century private residence in West St. John. A family of four, parents and two children. What they witnessed. The family reported a metallic, high-pitched screaming sound vibrating through the walls of the second floor. While this was happening, a heavy mahogany dresser in the master bedroom was physically tipped over without anyone near it. They also witnessed a translucent gray mist that solidified into a human shape before dissipating. And they reported it to the St. John's Fire Department, suspecting mechanical or electrical failure. Well, it's not. This is the third time. You need a little bit of help there with that. And on Monday, April 6th at 3 a.m., in a rural residence near Miramichi, homeowner was home alone, and the resident woke by hearing their own voice whispering their name from the hallway. Upon opening the door, they saw a 7 foot tall shadow standing in the center of the hallway. The entity reportedly made a rhythmic clicking sound before vanishing through a closed door, and they reported it to the local folklore and haunting digital logs. While this home has a history of ghostly footsteps, the visual manifestation and mimicking cries are new within the last 48 hours. So we get a lot at this time of the year in every area. We get radon coming out of the ground. A lot of homes, it gives energy to. Um, People need to look around their basements, do a thorough inspection to see that there's no cracks, and either seal it themselves or have somebody seal it. Walk around the exterior of your house, check for cracks on your foundation, and also check for dips in the soil because that'll indicate that there's crack down below and the walls can be parched from the inside and fixed. These things do help to stop this, but that's not the primary cause of this. This is an energy that's coming from the ground. It's coming from outside. So, yes, they can get help for it. And a basement near Moncton in the Dieppe area on April 5th at 11:15 p.m. A modern residential home in Dieppe, Moncton, outskirts, a homeowner and their adult son. They reported a heavy thumping or drumming sound coming from the basement. When they investigated, all the storage bins in the basement had been moved to the center of the room in a stack in a pyramid. A foul, sulfuric odor was present for approximately 10 minutes afterwards. Initially, reports to a security monitoring company, that's what they did, and then they reported it to the paranormal seekers to investigate. And this is the first incident that they've seen. In Maine, in the last 48 hours, on April 5th at 11:50, at a private residence in Bangor, near the Tree Street neighborhood, a homeowner and their house guest reported seeing a solid 7 foot tall black figure standing on the second floor landing. The entity did not have a distinct feature but appeared to be wearing wide brimmed hat. When the guest approached the figure, it dissolved into a thick black mist that smelled like ozone. All digital clocks in the hallways surged and then froze to 11:50. Initially shared on the regional paranormal tracking forum, the homeowners later contacted the Maine ghost hunters. And this is the fourth time that there's been a sighting of the hatted figure since February. The poltergeist on Monday, April 6th at 3:10 a.m., a coastal resident near Kittery home, a young couple. They were awoken by the sound of heavy objects being dragged across the kitchen floor. Upon investigating, they found heavy oak kitchen chairs stacked in a pyramid in the center of the room. As they watched, the overhead light fixture began to spin rapidly until the bulb exploded. They report feeling static electricity so intense it made their hair stand up. They reported the incident to the insurance provider regarding the damage, and then they contacted 207 Paranormal Group for an emergency consult. And this was the first time that heavy objects have physically been moved, although the couple reports hearing disembodied footsteps in the past few weeks. If they wish to email me down in Maine, I'll help you for free. To me, when I go into a home to clear it, get rid of demons, I've been doing this. You can look back. I've been doing this since I was a kid. Um, there's no hocus pocus to this for me. And My fear level is not there. I start on the outside and then I go into the house. Generally, most things occur on the outside. And all this fancy equipment that people use, I know a lot of people are going to get mad at me for this. And I'm sorry, but as a psychic, I don't use any equipment. I don't need it. And I don't find it's giving the correct readings. That's about all I can say about that. On Saturday, April 4th at 10:15 p.m., a residential property in Augusta, the east side, a resident living alone. The resident reported a distinct sound of a child-like sobbing coming from the basement floorboards. When they went down to investigate, they saw a translucent, blue-tinted child sitting in the corner. The entity looked at the resident and whispered a name inaudible before vanishing. The temperature in the room dropped to 45 Fahrenheit instantly, and they reported it to a family member and subsequently to the New England Society for Psychic Research. And this is definitely one that needs to be taken care of. This is not a child. This is a demon. This really needs to be looked at. That's it for that area. Thank you so much for listening. And as I've said before, if you're having trouble with this, you can email me and I'll be happy to help you anytime for free. It's not a problem. Thank you and have a wonderful day. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.